Guys, we got to go here first. So, you know that I have been talking a lot about the EarnIT Act. What is the EarnIT Act? The EarnIT Act is a piece of legislation in the digital rights world that is under the guise of protecting children. But what it would really do is potentially end encryption as we know it, because it would hold websites accountable for different things. It would allow our online activity to be monitored by state legislatures and by websites themselves. So, do you really think your children would be safer if Mark Zuckerberg's looking at everything they do online? If some state legislators can see everything they're doing online? Just think about that. If you live in New York State, would you feel safer if someone like Andrew Cuomo could look at all the things you're doing online or look at all the things? It's under the guise of making children safer. Let's say you have a 13-year-old daughter. Would you feel safer? Would you feel like that daughter is safer if she doesn't have any encrypted messages going on online? If all of her correspondence is just out there? If someone like Andrew Cuomo kids see everything she does online? How about someone like Joe Biden? So you get the point. This is under the guise of protecting children, but what it would really do is make all of us more vulnerable online. Don't take my summary for it. Let's go to the Electronic Frontier Foundation, one of the leading digital rights organizations in the country. Stop the EarnIT Act to save our privacy. The U.S. Senate has revived a surveillance bill that would have a lethal impact on privacy, security, and free speech. If Congress passes the EarnIT Act, it may become too legally risky for companies, to offer encryption services. So instead, they'll be pressured to scan nearly all online content. So it holds these companies liable for what happens online. So that would encourage them to end encryption services. Encryption is what keeps our messages safe and secure. Encryption is very important. Thanks to organizations like Fight for the Future, Zoom offered encryption. They weren't prior, and they were more susceptible. They started offering encryption thanks to pressure from organizations like Fight for the Future. So here's what EFF goes on to say. We need your support to stop the EarnIT Act before it gets any farther. The Senate Judiciary Committee has already voted in favor of it. This disastrous bill was proposed 2 years ago and then dropped after overwhelming public resistance. So this is one of those bills. It was so awful, they had to revive it and put a different name on it. It started out as Sesta Fosta, which was another bill that did similar things. It was under the guise of keeping people safer from sexual predators online. But what it really did was made everybody, every internet user, especially children, more vulnerable. The EarnIT Act uses crimes against children as a justification to invite all 50 states to regulate the privacy protections internet websites and apps provide to their users. The bill's supporters have made their message clear. Don't use end-to-end encryption. Instead, scan everything. So that's what the EarnIT Act is. That's what it does. And we've been covering it on this show. And one of the things that we have on Get Your News On with Ron is a call to action. So you can, let me make sure I get the, I think it's noearnitact.org, but let me make sure I get the URL right here before I officially, noearnitact.org. You can go to noearnitact.org and you can write to your senators and tell them to not support this bill. So I did that. And I know we that some of y'all have done that because we announced it on the show. I'm announcing it again. I encourage everyone to do that. Now, my state senator, one of my state senators is Dianne Feinstein. I know you're jealous. I know. I'll let that wear off here. That you're like, oh, Ron, that's Dianne Feinstein. You are such a lucky guy. You got Di-Fi representing you. Which, but by the way, she still has her sycophants. Dianne Feinstein, who has been called out for being super right wing since the frickin' 80s. Jello Biafra and the dead Kennedys have been calling her out since the 80s. So for 40 years now, she's been called out for just basically being a Reaganite who's been enriching herself in office, who's been turning her back on the people. She's been terrible. But somehow she still has her sycophants. They call her Di-Fi. They're like, yeah, Di-Fi. And they make excuses for everything she does. Everything she does, they have some kind of excuse. It's remarkable to see. It is not a political observation. It is a cult. I'm sorry. 40 years. 40 years, you prove you are no different than Reagan, except for a couple social issues here and there, maybe. and people are still making up excuses for you. So anyway, I got this letter from DiFi, and I want to share this letter from DiFi because guess what? DiFi is one of the big supporters of the EarnIT Act. So here's the letter she sends to her constituents when they express concern about the EarnIT Act. All right, you guys ready for this? Here it is. Dear Ron, this was her response. Thank you for writing to me about here. Hold on, let me try to. Thank you for writing to me about child sexual abuse materials found online. I appreciate the time you took to write, and I welcome the opportunity to respond. Okay, so let's just stop right there. Look at how she framed that. Thank you for writing to me about child sexual abuse material found online. That's not what I wrote to her about. I wrote to her about the EarnIT Act and concerns about the EarnIT Act. And she's trying to reduce it to, oh, thank you for writing to me about child sexual abuse material found online. Why would she lead with that? Because she's trying to make it out like if you have concerns about the EarnIT Act, that means you're okay with child sex abuse online, which is such a gross thing to do, and such a misleading and just straight up deceptive point of association to make. Oh, if you don't support this EarnIT Act, which is a complete overreach, will make us all less safe, not more. You must support child sex abuse online. You know what this is? And this is really interesting coming from Dianne Feinstein, because again, the only thing separating Dianne Feinstein from Republicans is just a couple things she might say on social issues like abortion or something like that. This is the same logic, the exact same logic that they use when they say, oh, you support a woman's right to choose, you support abortion rights, you want to kill babies. Same logic here. They're doing the exact same thing. They're doing that exact same trick that Republicans do. Oh, if you support abortion, you want to kill babies, which of course is absolutely ridiculous. Of course, it is nowhere near that simple. That's a completely insulting thing to say. And by the way, this is coming from someone, I am 110% pro-choice. I think that goes without saying. She's doing the same trick here. She's, oh, if you criticize the EarnIT Act, if you're concerned about the EarnIT Act, you're fine with child sex abuse online. That is insulting on every level and completely false. And the EarnIT Act does the opposite of what she's saying it'll do. So here's what she goes on to say. I am proud to be an original co-sponsor of the eliminating of the EarnIT Act of 2022, which was introduced by Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal. So Lindsey Graham's also behind this thing, and Richard Blumenthal. Big Clintonite, that guy. The Senate Judiciary Committee, of which I am a member, unanimously approved the EarnIT Act on February 10th, 2022. The bill now awaits consideration by the full Senate. I'd like you to watch the meeting. The EarnIT Act would amend Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. What's Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act? It's the section that basically allows free speech online, and it does not just apply to social media companies. It applies to all of us. All of us. If you actually read Section 230, you will find that blowing a hole in it is not the answer. The answer is to add new policy in addition to it that meets the technological moment, not to amend a policy that for the most part is working just fine. You have new policy that meets the moment. You don't blow a hole in policy that pretty much dictates our ability to have free speech online. So she's saying, well, that amends Section 230 anyway to remove a liability shield for interactive computer service providers that continue to allow child sexual abuse material to exist on their platforms. The bill would also establish a national commission on online sexual exploitation prevention. Again, state legislatures seeing what you do online. So this is DiFi's response that, any concerns about the EarnIT Act. And again, she's making it out like we can just legislate the internet as if it's just child protections on television or something like that. She's completely overlooking all of these disastrous consequences a bill like this would have when you apply it to the internet. Because again, we're governed by two types of people who don't understand the internet and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who can't handle the freaking internet. Dianne Feinstein is just proving this right now. And the framing that she has in that letter is at best grossly ill-informed and grossly misleading, and at worst deliberately deceptive. At best, it's just grossly ill-informed extremely limited. She is grossly oversimplifying what this bill would actually do, which we just showed you. And she's trying to reduce it to, oh, we're just going to help protect children better online. So if you're not for this dystopian Orwellian act, you don't want to protect children. That's absolute nonsense. This would not protect children. It would make them more vulnerable. So go to noearnitact.org, and tell your state legislatures to not support this bill. And maybe you too can get a grossly ill-informed, mildly condescending letter from your senator like me. USA.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your